Let's go ahead and get started. I have already pressed record for this session. My name's Colette Ramirez. I use she, her pronouns. I am in cultural services. I'm the community and cultural affairs senior manager. Thanks for being here. I'm gonna just go around real briefly. Claire, do you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name's Claire. I'm assisting Colette on the Art in the Parks grant this year. I work with City of Eugene Cultural Services. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm going to be helping monitoring the chat today. So if you have any kind of technical questions or issues, just let me know.
Great, thanks, Claire. Molly, I'm going to just go through City of Eugene folks, and then I'll invite you others to share.
Great. My name is Molly Minette. My pronouns are she, her, and I am with the community engagement team in Parks and Open Space. And this is my second year collaborating with Colette and the team at Cultural Services on this grant. And so, yeah, I'll be here to kind of talk about the parks role, and awardees will get to work with me throughout the process.
Wonderful. Martin.
Hi, I'm Martin Dellinger. I work as the marketing coordinator for Cultural Services. So I work more on the end of promoting this program, both promoting the call, and then once the events are selected, when they come up, the event organizers are really responsible for marketing the event. We do a little bit, but we're also on hand to help advise and interact with them to help you get the most publicity and promotion as it comes up. So kind of hovering around as needed.
Thank you all for taking the time to be here with us. I just want to say this is our second season. We had our first pilot season of Art in the Parks this last summer, and learned a lot, had a lot of successes, really excited about doing it again this year, knowing that and believing that community-driven events and programming are needed more now than ever to build community, uplift the soul, share stories, experiences, and really fulfill the vision from our increasingly diverse community. And also for you all to create the community you want to live in. And so for us to help provide and support through accesses and resources and minimizing barriers to kind of the permit system and all of that. We worked really hard in our pilot season to improve how we support events in the park system and want to continue to improve our systems and communication, which is why we have representatives in parks and open spaces, from marketing, and our team, just because we believe as public stewards, it really is our job to uplift a diversity of cultural heritages by creating more access resources and opportunities. And so the goals of the Art in the Parks project is to, and I'm going to read right now, so I'm going to be looking off to my other screen, is to steward vibrant, inspiring places that foster personal, community, and environmental well-being, to cultivate a sense of belonging in the park system and pride in historically underrepresented groups, such as Eugene's BIPOC and LGBTQIA+ populations, low-income communities, people with disabilities, unhoused individuals, youth, and seniors, to name some of the protected classes, to nurture relationships and promote cultural exchange through arts experiences that honor and celebrate diversity while striving to inspire empathy, understanding, dialogue, wonder, and curiosity, and to fund projects that both support large celebrations in Alton Baker Park and to activate community parks throughout Eugene. So really our goal of this meeting is to make sure all your questions are answered, you feel you have a solid understanding of the program, and that you can navigate our website. And I'll be taking questions as I go. This is not a formal presentation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be going through each tab, and I'll share my screen in a moment, and make sure you kind of see how we navigated that. One thing that I did want to share this year that we changed, we were able to increase our fund from $25,000 to a $45,000 fund. What we found was the original fund was enough to fund projects in Alton Baker Park, but we really do want this this fund to be able to support activities throughout the whole park system. And so we will be saving out approximately, is it 20 or 30%? I should go on the website, a portion of funds for smaller, more recurring or smaller events throughout the park system. So that's a change from last year. And one other change that we made is that if you have a history of producing events and you're applying for the large scale events, the $5,000 amount, you can apply for 2 years of funding. And we did that to reduce barriers to having to fill out the grant again. And so we now are operating on our biennium budget, and we're able to guarantee those funds for 2 years, which is really exciting that we're able to do that. All right, so this is a lot of what I already covered, just the main part of the website. What's going to be key is there's multiple places to apply online, but I'm going to just roll through some of these tabs. So this really gets into the details. We have the $45,000 fund. We have the small scale events, applying for up to the $2,500. We're saving out 30% of those funds. One of the things to know is the key distinctions here that we determine designated a small scale event versus a large scale event is whether or not you're going to need a fire marshal permit. And so you can click on this for more information, but really the key thing is whether or not the number of tables or booths you have exceed 10, or if the square footage exceeds 500 square feet, or if cooking is involved. And so what we have found that the larger events, as soon as you get to be a certain size, you're like, let's, you know, a lot of partners, a lot of vendors are invited. And so you have often what we've seen is many more than those 10 vendors. And so that is one of the designations that helped us decide what was the distinction between a small scale event and a large scale event. And this reiterates what I was saying about applying for 2 years of funding. And then for the applicant eligibility, we wanted to call out that the programming must take place between April 1st and October 31st. Really wanting to think about it being accessible. Applicants also must provide a one-to-one cash, in-kind, or volunteer time match for the project that equals the amount of your Art in the Park grant award. So you'll see as we do the budget sheet how that kind of plays out. But if we award you 1,000, like it says, you must contribute at least 1,000 towards your project costs. And that you can use in-kind or volunteer time as 100% of your match. And we do allow organizations to submit as many as 2 programs, but they will be scored separately and cannot be any open litigation. And any folks, this isn't really relevant to you all, but if you have an outstanding Art in the Parks grant, perhaps in the future, you would not be eligible to reapply. A couple other things. I'm going to try to go through this quick, knowing that this website's here for you all to reference. And then we have the application process. And it's really important, I think, for the application process that you all, I encourage you, there's these application questions on this PDF, to save this or use a different document as you answer your questions, so you can cut and paste them into the form that's online. That will be helpful for you all. You can save the form. Once you create it online, you can save your account and continue to work on it. I've always found it easier to kind of edit in a separate document. That's just a tip for you all. And there's in this PDF for the application questions is where you'll find the attached template for the budget. So this is a key thing that you'll see Claire speak to later on. And then there's an option when you do start to fill out your application to submit supplementary materials. really your applications are scored on the questions, but also on these. We don't have scoring for supplementary materials, but they really help the panel when they're reviewing and selecting to just get a sense of the quality of programming that you will be doing. So that's that. So I'm going to get out of this, go back to the tabs down here. Up, up. Okay. Here's a bunch of questions that people have asked throughout these sessions that you can get into and read. I really do encourage you kind of to go through pretty extensively the website. And then the selection criteria. This is how we will be then the panelists scoring. So just so you know how the process works, we strive to have a panel that is made up of partners from outside the City of Eugene organization, community members, organizational leaders who are passionate about the health of parks and passionate about art and culture, and we'll have 5 to 7 committee members who will be compensated, for their time in reviewing the applications, and they'll get sent the applications. We'll give them the selection criteria, and then they'll work to rank those. And then in a large meeting, we'll review all the applications, discuss the strengths, the pros and cons, and get to a place of selecting the awardees. And so really, we're looking at to what extent will programming promote arts and culture and meet our goals. To what extent will event planning steward environmental well-being? This came up in the panel last year as something that they wanted to see integrated into the application, recognizing just the global warming that we're in, the climate warming, and that we wanted to really be supporting events that come in, use the park really heavily to think through. And just so you know, on the back end, our team is exploring some systems that maybe we can help support event producers with services from organizations such as Waste Free Oregon, and we have the ability to do reusable dishware programs, and we have recycling and garbage kits. And so there are some resources that we can help as event organizers think about, how can I make my event more environmentally responsible? And then a big one is, have you demonstrated the capacity to produce the proposed programming and display excellence in planning? And so some of that will be through the questions you answer, but also that content that I was saying. And then have you had experience administering and producing similar programs? The overall contribution of well-being to the community. To what extent will the project be accessible, safe, and welcoming? How will the project include equitable decision-making, collaboration, consultation, participation, empowerment, and/or deepening relationships with the communities that you as the applicant serve and/or represent? And then does the project allow for flexibility and scaling? And also, are you adaptable to last minute changes in the event of unforeseen circumstances? A lot of these events do happen in the summer, and now, we're dealing with heat, we're dealing with smoke. And so have you as an event organizer kind of thought through what adaptations might need to happen for that? And then I'm actually going to pass it off to Molly, my colleague in Parks. And Molly, I can continue to click on these as we talk through the eligible parks.
Okay. So this year, we decided to call out a number of parks. There's not a park that is not eligible for Arts in the Park, but we wanted to pull out for event organizers who may not know what park they want to use, which ones have some amenities that might align with holding an event. And so those are listed on this page. And then there's also a link to our Civic Rec page that goes through all of our parks and the amenities that they have. And Colette already brought it up, but Alton Baker is a park that has a lot of annual events that currently exist there. We also have Cuthbert and some UVO football games that heavily use that park. And so if you're a new organizer and want to use Alton Baker, you can definitely select that as a preferred park, but we're really encouraging activation elsewhere. And so a couple things to keep in mind is if you are wanting to serve, say, alcohol as a part of your event, we do have parks that do not permit alcohol, and there's not exceptions that we can make to that. We do have some parks that typically do not allow amplified sound, but we can make considerations for that. We just look at the impacts on the residential areas. Those parks that we don't typically allow amplified sound are in our neighborhood parks. So we're just going to look at the time, place, manner for events that want to use some of those parks. And then anything else I would say around eligible parks is that, it's okay if you don't know which one and you're open to multiple ones, that's fine. And please go ahead and select that. I will just, I think that's it for what I would say for eligible parks for that tab. Unless you think I'm missing anything.
That sound good.
Okay. All right, so on to the park rental process. So this year looks a little bit different. We streamlined our process in the actual grant application. For folks that are here or are going to watch this later, last year people had to come directly to parks to also try to get that reservation. And this year we just built in a few questions into the grant application that we'll refer to once awards are issued, and we'll look and verify that the dates and the parks and all of that line up. And if they don't, then we'll reach out to the awardee and work out making adjustments as we can. And so we open up our annual reservations the first week of January. The only exceptions is that we allow our event holders that have held an event at the same location for 3 years or more, we allow them to renew. And then the other exception that we're making is for Art in the Park awardees to be able to reserve their date before we open it up to the general public. So ideally, we do want to secure the date for our awardees before January. So it's okay if you don't know the exact date as you apply, we can work that out in December with you. So once like I said, the awards have been selected, then we'll look at that information and reach out and congratulate our awardees and confirm the reservation. And then from there, gather some more information for us to help with the logistical planning of it. Not all parks can accommodate the same things. Like some lawn spaces can't have equipment like food trucks where others can. And, that can come down to like irrigation. There's all of these little details, right? Like these are parks, but they're venues, they're facilities, and they all have their quirks. So we're going to ask for as much detail as we can so that we can help triage and plan ahead. And we'll also, in collaboration with Colette, be notifying our awardees of like other permits that they may be required to obtain. For example, if you have a stage that is a certain size or larger, it requires a permit. If you're serving, alcohol, that requires additional permit and licensing and such. So our role is going to be kind of helping you get all of that information together leading up to the event.
Molly, do you want to talk about the fee fund or the fund for fee waivers?
Yes. Thank you. So parks, for this year, we are waiving up to a total of $15,000 in grants, and that is a combined total. So the amount that events will be charged is going to be determined based on the number of awards, scale, and the scope of events. And so once we have those determined, we will be in communication with our event organizers on what the fee will be. I will note that we are currently working through a process that's going to streamline our park rental fee structure and our fees, and we'll have that in place in January. So we'll keep everybody in the loop on what fees will look like, but we're not sure until we know how many events are going to be approved.
Yeah. So for example, some years we've been able, well, last year to fund or waive a higher percentage of fees because the award, the $25,000 fund and the parks fee fund were closer, but due to budgetary constraints by the city and need for raising revenues just due to budget climates, our park waiver fee fund is $15,000. So like Molly said, we'll know more once we know who's awarded, but I imagine it'll be a percentage of fees that will be waived, and you'll still have to pay a percentage of park fees. So just we're wanting to be really upfront about that. And so you can absolutely, if you are awarded $5,000 and your parks fee is $1,000, you can use your grant to pay for that, or however makes the most sense for your organization. Okay. Molly, anything else?
No, I would say, do we have, is the newest version of the special event planning guide, is that live yet?
It's not live just yet, but it will be very soon.
Okay. I would say once, awardees have been selected, that this special event planning guide is really going to be a great resource to reference. But, in this process, we look forward to getting to collaborate with events, and you'll be working closely with Colette and myself. But this is just a great resource to refer to. Some things you might not be required to do, but there's great tips in here, or things that you may want to apply to your event. So we're just finishing up some revisions for 2024.
Just a quick question on the permit fee, the fee for the park. I'm sorry if I could interject.
Yeah.
Just so when one is applying for it, you really wouldn't know, with your budget, what that fee would be. I mean, I'd be just interested in a very small park event, a musical concert. But if I have a very small limited budget during the application process, I really wouldn't know what to put in or what to consider for a fee until you get all of your grantees and your whole infrastructure figured out, and then you would let everybody know what that percentage would be later on.
Exactly.
Just to be clear.
Exactly. I mean, the events that are probably going to be impacted the most are going to be our larger, or not impacted the most, but where you're going to see is it's probably the larger events, because it's going to be taking more space, things like that, where the smaller parks, the fees in generally won't be as much, right? It's not so much a venue like Alton Baker is.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
But I think, Paul, you have a good question, and I'd love to jump ahead from expectations and support to timeline. So because I want to speak to a little bit around when I think we're going to do that process, so you all can hear that. The call is open right now. It closes November 13th at noon. In early December, the selection committee will meet to select awardees. We'll announce December 22nd. And we might even be able to announce sooner and then work with you all a little bit before that to support the park reservation system, to be able to identify those days, because we really want to make sure that we get those days in the park reservation system. And then we'll use December and January to look at all awardees, have conversations around scale, scope, the day, all, and then we will have a little bit of a puzzle to try to figure out what those fees are ahead of time. And we'd love to be able to build what those fees are, maybe with some flexibility, Molly. I'd love to build that into agreement. We'll have you all sign an agreement and talk about the reporting and all that. And that'll happen sometime in January, February. And then April 1st through October 31st is the time period for small scale events to occur. And then April 1st through October 31st of 2024 and 2025 for large scale events if you're applying for those 2 years of funding. Looks like, do we have a question in the chat or a hand raised?
Yeah, I was wondering, so, when I know this is specific to the parks, and I'm curious if there are other opportunities for like indoor events too, because when I envisioned Daisy Fest, I wasn't thinking of it as an outdoor event because of there's some performances that I think would be awesome, like at the Holt Center, but I'm just wondering, like, if there are other opportunities too. I mean, we could potentially adapt it for outdoor,
Yeah.
but that wasn't the initial vision of it.
So I'd love to show you, it might not, then the art in the parks may not be the appropriate grant. So there's a few other grant opportunities and, oh, this is not where I wanted to go. Hold on 1 second.
The art part is what captured. I mean, someone mentioned this to me that this was happening. So that's the thread that's connecting here. But it's not that we couldn't have it outdoors, but it would be it would be another whole thing for me to explore.
Well, I'd love to share with you because I think this is a good question for you all. Let's say you apply and unfortunately are not awarded. There are other resources out in the community. So I just Googled City of Eugene community events, and I'm just going to go back so you all can see. We have at the very bottom, we have a link that says resources for event organizers. And so the art, oh, this is not the one, sponsorship resources, other grants and funding. That's what I want.
Okay.
So we have multiple kind of opportunities. So right now we're talking about art in the parks. That's open now. But we also have a downtown program fund, which will be released in January with a kind of a February deadline. So you could use that for a project, but it has to be in downtown. So there's been a lot of projects at the Farmers Market Pavilion. So that's a great kind of indoor space. But then Lane Arts Council also has community arts grants, and the yearly deadline is in April. And so they have program grants for an organization, but they also have project grants. So Desi Fest could apply for that for a project. And so on here under cultural services opportunities, grants and funding are links to those sites. There's community and neighborhood matching grants, which is ongoing. And then the Human Rights Commission, you can write a letter and ask them for a small amount of funding. So there are other opportunities out there. And so Anil, if you're like, I really art, yes, I love the idea of art, but in the parks, maybe not so much. Some of these other funds or grants might be a better fit for Desi Fest.
Thank you. I mean, the outdoor sounds cool too, but I haven't pictured how that could look for us. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That would be a whole other planning project. So,
yep, absolutely. Completely understand. I do want to talk a little bit about awardee expectations, just so you understand what we expect from you. So Martin alluded to this, but conduct all your own marketing and promotion. We will provide some social media and website presence on our webpage. So we'll have it listed on our webpage. It's listed on our calendar, but we're not creating the content for your Facebook events, for everything else. We'll share them after once they go up, but that is really the responsibility of the organization that's applying and receiving the grant funds, including City of Eugene logo, You're required to apply, pay, and obtain all necessary permits. Like I said, we recognize that we're giving you some funding, but there will be some permits that are paid. The amount that you will need, that you will be receiving will definitely be more than what the fees are. And then we're required to submit necessary documentation to Parks and Open Space at least 6 weeks before the event. So for example, for especially bigger events, they need the site map, kind of a run of show, a lot more detail. One thing that I will do is I will facilitate a meeting, and I'll put it in our agreement 6 weeks before your event, where I will pull together all the folks who handle permits for the city, and we'll work with you on checking in and making sure you have everything you need. I'll even work with you beforehand to say, hey, these are the permits you're going to need. And then we'll have that 6-week meeting to help facilitate the process. We also do provide equipment for events and for awardees. We have canopies, we have tables, we have chairs, we have some A-frames, and we're willing to loan out that equipment. But the key is then you all helping us schedule when you pick up, usually the Friday before your event and returning on the Monday. And that you will receive 80% of the funds per year upon award notification, and then 20% after we receive your final report, which is due November 15th. And then we ask that you provide a final report with 3 to 5 high quality images that then we can use on our website or for promotion of art in the parks. And then I kind of alluded to some of it, support from us, an initial consultation, most likely with me, maybe our coordinator, David Dickinson, that required permit meeting 6 weeks out, communication with our team. If you need support, we'll provide a marketing toolkit and information about best practices for promoting your event. Some folks haven't really done a lot of promotion, so we kind of give you a whole toolkit to follow. We'll provide some publicity and, like I said, access to equipment. And then Parks and Open Space will provide an initial site visit to the park. We can do that kind of earlier on, provide a template of an operational plan outlining all the documentation and permits required. And then there is a required operational meeting at least 6 weeks in advance. You'll get communication from Molly and her team, Molly and Amy, and then they have their park operations and park spec team. And then there is an optional visit a week prior to the event. I found with large scale events, especially, those are really helpful. Just confirming, the electrical's here. Are there any bees in the area? Just like all the last minute details that come with events. And then instructions on how to report issues on the event day. Inevitably, events are events. You do all the planning, and sometimes things come up. So knowing who you can access and who to call on event day is really important. So we'll work with you on there's this whole process, and then the whole kind of operations aspect of it and planning. That's all I got for this. I'm going to stop sharing right now. Do you all have any other questions? Otherwise, yeah, jump in if you have questions.
I guess,
yeah, go ahead.
Maybe along the lines of what you were just talking about, the support, which sounds wonderful, infrastructure like tables and canopies and things. Would that be human power to some extent as well? Or is that pretty much determined? The organization has got its group of helpers and
that's a good
setting
question.
up.
Yeah, and so it really is on the organization to have the human power. And we also noted that most of our events, the biggest cultural celebrations in Eugene, are volunteer run. And so our team, depending on availability of our staff, I have budgeted to help have like 2 staff help a little bit with load in and load out, but that's not us bringing all your stuff from our office. That's more like, oh my gosh, I need more cones for parking, or they just show up as volunteers and wear our staff shirts and they help out that day, but it's not anything to really plan on. Other questions?
I noticed Monroe Park was on the, the general list, but that's kind of my neighborhood park, and that would be my preference. Do you have any knowledge just if that's would be considered fair game as far as a smaller neighborhood park to actually utilize for a very small musical performance? I know maybe this is too specific, but I just thought before if it's worth pursuing this, just to see if that's an option.
Yeah.
If any of you could tell me. Yeah.
I think, yes, absolutely. I think for parks like Monroe, I mean, we'd love to see activation at all of our parks. We're just going to look at like the sound and traffic impacts in the neighborhood and just make sure that we're being mindful of that. But yeah, so
right.
if an event was a certain size, we might say, this isn't
right.
a good fit,
yeah.
but
yeah.
know the park and
well, it would be very small if I did it. So thank you.
Good question. Thanks, Paul. Bob said, let me see if I can read the whole thing. For a public event in a park without restrooms or porta potties required, specifically Washburn Park Sunday night concerts. Yes, that would be a requirement. And if you need help identifying companies, that's, we're happy to answer any questions. Typically, we provide, if we're only going to do one, we provide an ADA unit is the recommendation. Usually, Claire, you might know me. I think it's like $325, anywhere from $250 to $325 for one unit. You can call Honey Buckets,
Bucks.
Above All Sanitation to
I think
get
they do an hourly rate, and then there might be a drop-off fee. If it's just for a few hours, it shouldn't be too much.
I was just looking at the eligible parks, and I don't know all of the names. I know some of them, but are there any in West Eugene that are part of the eligible?
Peterson Barn is listed on here for sure. Molly,
Okay.
you'll speak to the other.
Let me pull that back up. You were saying what?
In West Eugene, I was just curious. I know some of the.
Bethel.
Oh yeah, Bethel.
Bethel's gonna be.
Oh, I see it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Bethel's gonna be in the west. Okay, we have so many parks, and as a parks employee, you would think you would know the geographical location of all of them. But yeah, definitely. Irwin is also going to be in West Eugene.
Is it okay? Yeah, I wasn't familiar with that name, but great, thank you.
Claire, it looked like you answered Bob's question. Other questions? If not, Claire's going to walk us through the budget template, which some people definitely have questions. I think the big thing to note for the budget for us is that we really want to see that you have the programming capability for this to work for your organization and want to see if this project is feasible. We don't ask for a final budget report at the end to measure, just to note, but it is something that we will look at. And I know some people get really stressed out about this. It's not the only thing that we're looking at for sure.
Okay, should I go ahead and get started on the very fun topic of budgets? I'm just so excited to listen to your all ideas about what you might propose, and it's really exciting to meet some new folks for me and hear about new organizations and projects that we can hopefully help support. So that's kind of what the budget is, all about. So Colette mentioned on the Art in the Parks website to click the online form. You can get to the budget template through that online form, which I'll show you now, or on that PDF application page. So it's at the very end under here, budget. And we actually have a budget template linked for you, so you don't need to create one from scratch. We have one that you can fill in. So here's the template that you can fill in when you're ready to apply. Down here, there's 2 tabs. I included an example tab just to help kind of follow along. And I'm going to go through that with you all right now. And just before we get started, just know that your budget might look really different from this example. Like you don't need to fill out every single one of these. Some might be blank. You might want to add more. It's pretty flexible. And if you have any questions,
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, I was
Could
just
you-
gonna say,
Could
if
you
you have any
remind me?
questions,
Could you remind me how to get to the template?
yeah, you can do it through, let me go back. The Art in the Parks website. So you can go directly through the online form or under application process. There's the PDF. Under the budget section on number 12, there's an attached template which will download the spreadsheet to your computer. You can open it in Microsoft or in Google. And then there's also step-by-step instructions listed here too. Yeah, if any questions come up, just unmute yourself. Okay. So let's start on the example tab, and up here at the top, Colette mentioned that large scale events can apply for consecutive funding for 2024 and 2025. That means you're basically going to be duplicating your budget for both years if you do go for that consecutive funding. So just let us know in your application. And then you don't need to do 2 budgets. This will kind of apply for both years. And then if you are selected for 2 years, you can always revisit your budget, but you're kind of proposing more or less the same program and the same budget. So let's start with revenue. So this is money we are bringing in. I'm going to talk about this hypothetical event that we're applying with. So I'm just going to go through and kind of give definitions and walk through how this template works. So sponsorship from business or corporation. Let's say that our hypothetical event has reached out to a business for business sponsorship for $500. So I'm going to put that here, but it's not confirmed yet. So just note on this column if it's secured or pending. I wrote pending for that one. If there are any additional grants that you're applying for or have secured in addition to the Art in the Parks grant, you could list that here. Applicant cash, this is what your organization can contribute in cash. So say for a hypothetical organization, we know we can commit $500 of our organization's funds, and that we are committing to that, it's secured, it's already decided. Another section in revenue is program sales and fees. So this is if you're charging people to attend or participate. If there are no ticket sales or sales to attend this event, you would just leave that blank. And remember that if the event is not free to attend, a portion of tickets must be offered for free or on a sliding scale. You would just indicate that here in that section. Okay, this next one can get a little tricky. So you'll notice when we jump down to expenses that there's also volunteer time in revenue and expenses. When it's in revenue, we're thinking about that as overhead time for volunteers or staff, like personnel or admin. So overhead volunteer time, that would be like if you have any people who volunteer to work for your organization in general, you would indicate that here. They're not considered cash. That's a kind of a donation of their time, so that would be in kind. Then similarly, personnel, overhead personnel. So this is staff who are already hired. They are considered overhead revenue. I put that staff who are already hired are going to put 54.9 hours of their time. And this is overhead because the organization would pay that staff whether or not they're helping coordinate this event or another event. Like, for example, if they're the event coordinator, staff person, and it's their job to coordinate the events. And then there's an other section. You can put whatever you need to there. For this hypothetical event, I was thinking some fundraising would be helpful to cover the expenses. Okay, so then we get to the Art in the Park request. So this line is the amount that you're asking us for with your application. Then that builds on the match, which Colette mentioned. So we want to see a 1-to-1 match. So that means your total revenue for cash and in kind should be the same as your Art in the Parks request. And this template is set to automatically total, so you can play around with the numbers and see how they match up. So right now, the total match equals the total project revenue. Wait, did I explain that correctly? Your match, this is your match, that equals 2,500. That should equal the same amount as your Art in the Parks ask, and that equals your total project revenue.
Or be more, right? Because you could have, if you had a really big event, the Art in the Parks request would just be small. It has to at least match your in kind.
So you cover yourself.
Some big events are way more than 2,500 or $5,000.
Are there any questions about revenue?
So I'm just trying to get this clear. So the $2,500 that is being requested here is not the actual amount that's coming, that would be coming if it was approved, or how does?
Yeah, the 2,500 is the amount that would be coming from the city of Eugene.
Okay.
Arts in the Park grant. But your entire project might have a larger revenue than your grant request amount.
So like some of the budgets, for events that were awarded last year were $30,000 really is where they came from. And so what we end up seeing, it really has to work for you all. As you do this, you'll kind of do the math and a lot of folks end up having a lot of volunteers, a lot of staff kind is how they kind of end up working it out with as Claire is going to talk about in a moment, at the expense side to make them equal out.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, we have about 5 minutes left, so I'll just kind of generally talk about expenses instead of go through every line item. And this example is listed in the template for you to refer to, then you can also always get in touch with us. So the expenses are the money that you're spending specifically for the event that you're proposing for Art in the Parks. So we have project personnel and admin that's specific to the program. So for example, the event staff that will be working that day. Artist fees or any artist that you would be paying that day, all the supplies and materials that you might need. Permit fees, that Eugene special event guide and resources for event organizers, that those resources do have some permit fees that we already know that are listed. We don't know the park fees yet exactly, but there are some permits where we do already know the cost of those. So you can go in and find out some of those other permit fees that you can include in your budget. Any production fees, like for porta potties, like we were talking about, insurance, any rentals, promotion and marketing, any volunteer time for that specific event day, and other. So then this automatically totals your total cash and in-kind expenses, and your total cash and in-kind expenses should be equal to or less than your total project revenue. Really, the selection committee wants to see that you have some resources and capacity to do the event that you're proposing. One of the biggest things that they look at is, do the revenue and expenses match, or are the expenses like way more than the revenue? And that kind of notes like, is this feasible? Are there other things that we could be thinking about? Are there any budget questions? That was pretty fast and a lot of line items.
You explained it well. Thank you. That's helpful.
Okay, thanks. This is also recorded, so you're also welcome to go back and watch this meeting again once it's up on the website.
We're also happy to answer any questions. I've blocked out time for the Friday before when this project is due, and also that Monday, recognizing that sometimes people are, getting towards the end. And so probably emailing me is the best way. I'll be monitoring my email for questions that come in as you're thinking about submitting.
Maybe one last quick question. Is it on the application that you maybe have a first or second date preference or something like that? Or do you need a specific date etched in stone, or that'll be a little bit discussed in the process if one is awarded the grant to finalize?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you'll apply for the date. If you know the date, put your best guess, or I shouldn't say best guess, your preferred date. And then once you're selected and been notified, we'll be in touch with making sure that Amy Meeker is the woman that you'll be most likely be working with from Parks and Open Space, or Molly, to kind of confirm those dates, make sure somebody else who hasn't used that park for 3 years in a row. It's really the 3 years in the row is when it's grandfathered in.
I'll also add, Paul, that the selection committee does like to look at a kind of a diversity of dates and times of events selected throughout the summer. So even in the past, folks have put something really general on their application, like a Friday evening sometime in the summer, or a Saturday in May, and kind of help them say, okay, well, we have some May events, we have some August events, let's look for some June and July events to fill in. So even something really general like that is helpful. And then later on we can get specific together.
Does it have to be a 1-day event, or can it be like a multi-day, like 2 or 3-day kind of?
It could be a multi-day event. I think
Okay.
multi-day events, the fees go up in the parks
Mhm.
to reserve them beforehand. So that's just something to consider.
Yeah.
In the
Well,
past events,
I was just thinking, what if one part was an indoor and another part was a park kind of thing, so it's sort
Ooh,
of a hybrid in a way.
Yeah, really fun.
cool.
That's a great idea.
Mhm.
Well, and Colette, can it be a series? Because I feel like
Mhm.
didn't the Whitaker, yeah, that was a series of events. So yeah, it can be
Yeah, like once a month.
once a month over
And
the
is
summer.
there, oh yeah, sorry. I was also curious about nonprofit, or does that matter in terms of what your organization's, background
No,
is?
I don't think so for this.
No, not so much. You know, like we did say, one of the questions is like, have you produced an event like this before? What
Mhm.
was the event and your capacity to do this? Like that is why also for the large scale events, often newer ones won't apply for like the large scale ones necessarily right off the bat, you know, and so we feel like if you're a large scale event, you've done it multiple years, we feel good about giving you the funding. It's not like you're going to get all the funds anyways. You're not going to get $10,000 in the beginning, but we'll work that and guarantee that into the budget.
Thank
Yeah, I
you.
just double checked and it looks like we don't ask for like your designation if you're a business or nonprofit or
You can be
different.
an individual, just should
Mhm.
demonstrating that you have the capacity
Mhm.
to do this.
Okay, great, thank you.
So very, very helpful information.
Good, good. Glad we could be of help. Any last questions? My email is, I think, everywhere on the website, so feel free to contact me. It's at the bottom. Actually, maybe Martin, oh yeah, you can just press it. There's my email. And then Claire just dropped it in the chat. Feel free to contact me if you have any additional questions after this. We'll post this video online to refer to as well. And I think that's it.
Yay, we're
Thank you all
so
so much.
excited for your applications.
Yeah, thank you so much. We can't wait to see them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh,
Yeah,
have a good evening.
Yeah, you too. Take care,
Bye.
Take
folks.
care.